Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first ever live streaming version of the Jackson Reaction Podcast. I'm Gene Jackson, along with
The real Rosie J. Rose Jackson.
Rose Jackson. That's right. It's our first time using the live streaming StreamYard to do the Jackson Reaction Podcast. Of course, we haven't done one since around Thanksgiving. But we're going to try to start doing these a little more regularly here, doing them live here on Facebook as well as streaming on YouTube.
That's true. That's true. We got a lot of new, I don't know if I would really say exciting, but new things that we have experienced due to having downtime with the pandemic, as I'm sure most people have. This week, I guess we're going to discuss how I've got you into loving British humor.
Yeah, wasn't a big fan of British comedy previously. Was never a Monty Python fan or anything like that. But a few years back, you introduced me to the British version of The Office, and then we moved on to extras, and we'll we'll go through that right now. I'm gonna let you lead the way since you're the one that introduced me to it. I'm gonna kind of let you lead the show here, and we're going to talk about a lot of these because I highly recommend most all the shows we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and I'm rather surprised that a few that I've introduced you to that you find are humorous and funny and witty, and I'm really pleased that I can enjoy these with you because I being my age, I'll go ahead and tell everybody I'm 42. I don't look 42, but I'm 42. And I grew up in the time of the 80s when we had, growing up, I had BBC. I did watch a lot of British comedy when I was a child. I had Monty Python's Flying Circus that used to come on. And, I loved it, and old school 1970s, 80s Doctor Who, Absolutely Fabulous came along. And then, of course, the ever smutty humor classic Benny Hill, who was I think up to at least 89 from 1955. That show ran for a long time, and everybody, I'm sure there's people that are like, who's Benny Hill? Well, he's the old man that used to chase the women around in bikinis, but the humor
to the saxophone music,
right? And watching all this when I was a kid, it's where I developed a lot of my comedy likes and movie likes and things of that sort. Like, Monty Python's Flying Circus, you had John Cleese that was in that, and he was in a lot of the James Bond movies. He was in A Fish Called Wanda in the 80s. He's done several things in his actor time, and it's like, I know that you're not a fan of the Monty Python at all.
Did you prefer the TV show to the movies, or was there a movie you preferred over the others? Or
the Holy Grail is my favorite as far as the movies. The Flying Circus was my favorite as far as the TV sketch show. I know that that's more of a satire, surreal humor type, and you don't dig those at all, and I get that.
Not really. A lot of people that know me and know my feelings on Monty Python, I like the Dead Parrot sketch. I like the Spanish Inquisition to a degree. My buddies that when I first really saw Monty Python were huge fans of the Lumberjack song, which I could take or leave, But of course, like I said, you mentioned this Absolutely Fabulous. I've never watched that. What's the gist of this?
Absolutely Fabulous was a mother and daughter. Okay, they lived in this flat, and it's funny. You got this mother who's an alcoholic, a daughter that's losing her mind. The comedy of two women, acting like this, as single women chasing men, drinking, smoking. I'm fabulous. I'm beautiful. I'm smoking and drinking. Oh, that it was good humor for me.
I got you. And then, of course, Doctor Who.
Doctor Who
that I've tried to watch and tried to like. not my thing. Which isn't exactly a comedy as far as
No, and I mean Doctor Who's it's ran for a long time. You're talking like there's 13 doctors now. I mean this ran from 63 to current times, and it's just like oh my god, like how many more or how much longer is it going to run for? But I mean I've watched the old Doctor Who, which I'm a fan of. I'm really a fan of the Tom Barker Doctor, who was the fourth Doctor. I like the newer Doctor Who's, but not as much as the old because that holds a lot of nostalgia for me. Being a kid, sitting up late on Friday night, Saturday night, and this coming on and me watching it. It was just something I just really remember from being a child.
If you had to speculate and guess, about how many doctors have there been over the years, just roughly?
13.
13.
Yeah, 13.
And in more recent years, traditionally it has always been a male doctor, but in recent years they've kind of moved away from that, so to speak. They had a female Doctor Who, which was kind of weird. I know you kind of checked out on it around that time, at least for a while.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm a pretty decent Doctor Who fan, but when the woman doctor showed up, I was not pleased. Which in these recent years, I was never pleased when they switched from one to the other because they made the 10th Doctor, which is I call Dr. Kitty Cute, so cool and likable. Like I didn't want to see him leave. So right. when it went to the next one, I just I kind of tuned out. I don't know. I lost interest with it after that, I guess.
Right. So this producer Roxy is at the door over here looking in. So I don't know if she's disagreeing with something you're saying, or so you might want to listen in the headphones if Roxy gives you any production notes there.
Oh, okay. Well, Roxy's been around for a lot of our TV watching, so she would know.
That's right.
But talking about Monty Python, it's funny you don't like that kind of comedy, but yet you like certain aspects of the Mighty Boosh, which I've introduced you to recently.
So I like Old Greg, and I can tolerate the Milky Joe one, and that's really the only ones I've found so far. And I don't even like all of the Old Greg episode. I mostly just like the first 10 minutes that he's involved. But, Mighty Boosh, overall, I would not classify myself as a fan of Mighty Boosh. There's just a couple of things they do that I find. So are we starting with that? Is that where we're going?
We'll start with Mighty Boosh, since that is the first thing that I introduced you with. Mighty Boosh is a comedy that came out in about 2004. It's kind of a sketch show, almost like a surrealism, much like Monty Python. It was created by Noel Fielding, his brother Michael Fielding, and Julian Barrett. Julian plays Howard Moon. You've got Noel Fielding, who's pretty popular in England. He's on that great British baking competition. He plays Vince Noir. And then his brother Michael is actually Naboo that's on there. So it's like the creators of the show are characters as well as the writers, directors, and players. So
if you're looking at the picture on the screen right now, Howard Moon is the gentleman with the hat on to your left with the thumbs up, and then to the right is Vince. And it's kind of crazy to think that he hosts a baking show in England now. But
look, Noel Fielding is like awesome, right? I mean, the dude's genius. You got this show, and I'm Old Greg. I mean, he comes up with these characters, and he plays the characters so well. And it's like, okay, watching it's a bit ridiculous. Yeah, it's absurd comedy. But it's got an absurdity that's it's so far out there that you just, you like it. And I mean, there's several episodes that I love. I mean, some of them you've never seen. I know you watched The Strange Tale of the Crack Fox. My fancy mind's your fancy mind. You got some fancy shoes. Yeah. You hated that. You absolutely hated it. And I thought, this is something I'm not going to get you to ever watch with me. You're just so absolutely against it. And then you seen Old Greg, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly as absurd as it gets, and but there were aspects of it that I found pretty funny. So
yeah,
I'll admit that.
I admit, in the Nightmare of Milky Joe, that's one of my other favorites of that
Yeah.
of that particular show. And it's just the sketch comedy with inanimate objects always tickles me. I mean, yes, it's absurd, yes, it's ridiculous, but it's good fun.
So where do we move on to from Mighty Boosh?
We would go with the same 2004 release of Garth Marenghi's
Okay, so
The
Garth
Doc.
Marenghi's A Dark Place. So there's a picture of Garth Marenghi, and there's the cover of the DVD set. But now let's take a look at the cast here, and tell us a little bit about the folks involved in Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
All right, you got Matt Berry, who a lot of people know Matt Berry now because he's pretty mainstream. He's Toast of London, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. He was on the IT Crowd. He's been in
most recently What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows. He's the spokesperson of Advil now. The Advil commercials. That's Matt Berry. But for years,
that's him on the left there.
He's on the left. For years, he's composed music, and he's composed some of the Doctor Who themes, which is cool.
Right.
Then you got Richard Iotti, who is the gentleman with the shotgun there. And Richard has become pretty synonymous around Britain as a comic actor. He does producing, directing, all kinds of stuff. And he's got a Man About Town series that we recently discovered.
Man on Man, I think.
Man About Town, something like that, where he goes and eats food with people. And it's
that
great.
one, yeah. That's oh gosh, Travel Man.
Travel Man, yes, Travel Man.
Because he's got one where he goes and eats food, then he's got another where he kind of messes with different gadgets and things like that. But
yes. But he's a very likable character. I mean, in everything we've seen him in, he's different in some things, similar in others. It's just he's a super funny, super good actor. Then you have Matthew Holiness, who is the Garth Marenghi of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. This man is a genius because this show is like just ode to 80s parody cheesiness, and it's great. I forgot what you call the other lady there on the end. Other than Liz.
Yeah, she's Liz in the show. So I guess at this point we can kind of break down. So this show is a parody of 80s action type shows. Like I don't want to say sitcoms because they weren't comedies, but back in the day, you had these shows based in hospitals and you had action shows. So they kind of melded the two together because you've got the hospital aspect, but as you see, they're wielding guns. Kind of tell us the whole concept, because what I was about to say is the fun part of this show is you had Garth Marenghi, who is actually Dr. Douglas, but in the presentation of the show, he's Garth Marenghi talking about writing this show, playing Dr. Douglas. So it's funny, just the whole concept of it.
Well, the concept of you've got an actor playing an actor is tremendous. Like they do even the extras on the DVD set were tremendous because it's like they're interviewing themselves as their actor, Garth Marenghi, Dean Lerner, but he's,
So Richard Iotti is Dean Lerner, who's a producer of the show, who then also is a character within the show. So when they're talking out of the main character of the show, they're the Dark Place show, they're still in character as Marenghi and Lerner, speaking about the characters. And it's like I say, it's kind of complex to think about, but it's very funny, and it really makes fun of how seriously these people took themselves, especially like back in the 80s when they were making, they were changing the world with these silly shows they were making, and they really convey that well, because it dips back and forth between the show and then them talking about the show in what was at the time present time. They're showing clips of this show from the 80s, and then we're cutting to interviews with them in, supposedly present time, where they're giving you the background of the show.
Right. And this was like a very early time for Richard Ayoade, as far as writing, directing.
Yeah.
Matthew Holiness, same thing, and it's like comic gold. I mean, there's so many great one-liners in the 6 episodes that it had. It's tremendous for it to be 6 episodes. But I highly suggest anybody that would be interested in British comedy or science fiction, parody comedy, check it out. Definitely.
So, and this, of all the shows we're going to talk about here, this is the easiest one to check out. And I guess we should take a step back. Mighty Boosh, if you want to see it, is available on Hulu, or you can get DVDs online. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is actually, the full series is available on YouTube. You can see all 6 episodes plus all the extras and others, interviews and things like that are all available on YouTube if you look them up.
Yes. All right, so we come to the third one, and which would be your favorite, the IT Crowd. I discovered this. This came out in 2006, ran for about 4 seasons. It's on Netflix currently. Great show, and if you've ever worked in IT or with computers, it makes it even more funnier.
Right, yeah, because I've been working at home doing tech support for the last several months. And so that's what kind of piqued my interest in watching it. When I knew it was a British show, I was like, I don't know. And initially going in, you didn't figure I was going to be a fan of it. And I was doing other things on the computer while you were watching it. And eventually shut the computer and started watching it. And at this point, I've seen every episode at least twice, some more than that. And between this and Dark Place, yeah, Richard Ayoade's about my favorite British, actor at this point. He's hilarious in the show, which they all are, but him especially, as Maurice Moss. Yeah,
the interaction between him and Chris O'Dowd is just fantastic. Chris O'Dowd is Roy, and then you've got Richard Ayoade, who's Maurice Moss, and you've got Catherine Parkinson, who's Jen. And these 3 people are, in the basement of this corporation. They're the IT. And all this crazy stuff goes on in the IT department. And just the stories.
And, of course, their initial response to everything when you call IT is, have you tried turning it on and off again?
Which is great. Which is
great and holds true in most cases.
Yeah, every person that calls and says, my computer's broke. Have you tried turning it on and off again? Oh, no, thanks, mate. I didn't try that. And then they hang up. I'm thinking, it's not that easy.
That sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is. But, yeah, I have to say, I'm tickled that that's your favorite, because that one is my second favorite, British comedy TV show. And I really enjoy watching those with you. And they're super funny. No matter what order we watch them in, how often we watch them, that's my go-to.
And you don't have to have a background in IT or even be a tremendous nerd to enjoy it. I mean, it's universally funny. I can't imagine anybody not finding the show funny.
Exactly. Well, and then our fourth one would be The Toast of London, which came out in 2012 and stars Matt Berry. Matt Berry wrote and directed a lot of the Toast of Londons. So it's also a little artsy comedy humor, which I didn't think you would like. I don't think you really like the musical parts of it, but yeah. But it's a great show, because you've got Stephen Toast, who is the main character, and he's the Toast of London. Then you have his arch nemesis, Ray Bloody Purchase, and they go at each other. They're both trying to be these up and coming actors. You've got Stephen Toast is trying so hard to make it. And you got Ray Bloody Purchase that gets all the good parts and rubs it in his face. And it's great. It's a great show.
Yeah. A lot of running jokes that, run throughout the series. And so since, Toast isn't the greatest actor and, he has a regular part in apparently the worst play of all time. So they say. He has to supplement his income with other gigs. One being frequently having to do voiceover work, which is ironic because, like you said, now he legitimately does voiceover work for some of the biggest companies in the world on national television. But he goes and he does these voiceovers, and these two young guys run it, and so he's constantly butting heads with them. But one of them's name is Clem Fandango, and so a running thing almost the entire series is every time they get ready to start recording these things, Clem Fandango will ask, and he has to say his whole name. He'll say, "Steven, this is Clem Fandango. Can you hear me?" And of course, Steven has to reply with his whole name. "Yes, Clem Fandango, I can hear you." And that's doesn't sound that funny, but for some reason it's hilarious to me. And like I say, it's a running joke. And now you can get mugs with that on there and T-shirts and all kinds of things. It's become one of the big catchphrases of the show, surprisingly.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's several things throughout the show that have are, I mean, just his character in general. The fact that he frequently fornicates with Ray Purchase's wife.
Yeah, and it's big Paul. It's like a known thing.
It is a humorous thing to me, and that he one of my favorite episodes of that whole show throughout the 4 seasons is him and Ray Purchase get a gig, the same gig, but for different tour bus guides in England, and they've got to dress the part like 16th century, British. So they're on top of these tour buses, and they're bickering back and forth between the buses. And Ray Purchase says, "You're a something bastard, you'll never make it. You'll never make it." And he says, "Oh, screw you, Ray Purchase. I fuck your wife on a regular basis." And he says, "You do not. My wife is not a prostitute." And there's a big billboard right behind him, and he points to it and says, "Your wife is a bloody prostitute." And there's her picture, says, "Call Miss Purchase for a good time."
Yeah.
That's not my favorite.
And there's a lot of great cameos throughout.
Oh, yeah.
The series as well. Ones you don't expect a lot of times.
Well, that was the funny thing with Mighty Boosh. Like, you just see somebody random and be like, "Who's that?" "Yeah, I think it is." And that's, it'd be some, like, pretty good actor.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's the thing with some of these British comedies. Like, you don't realize where a lot of people, they all intertwine in some way.
Yeah, that was what's crazy to me because, like, the guy who played Garth Marenghi isn't in a lot of things like over there, but he pops up in Toast to London just briefly in an episode, and then we've seen him in a couple other things we'll get to here in a moment. But all these shows that we really like so well, like they're all intertwined. The different actors and actresses are either in each other's shows, and some are married, and just all kinds of strange connections amongst them all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then, if you want to talk about some of the ones that we pretty much, you had already watched with me, or we discovered together through the years. We have, like the British Office. I think the British Office is better than the American Office, and somebody can shoot me now for that. I don't care.
No, I agree. Although I come to like the American Office a lot better than I did initially. But the British one is superior in my opinion. Just a lot of people don't see it that way because it didn't go on near as long. There was only, 2 seasons of it.
Yeah, something like that. It was in like, they had that in 2001, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. So it wasn't very many.
So it was short-lived, but it still holds up.
Oh yeah. Well, and I love Ricky Gervais. I know people hate him because of his his thoughts and opinions. And
yeah,
things,
a lot of his political things, and
I mean, like as a comedian, as his comedy goes, his directing, his writing, him and Stephen Merchant are two of the funniest guys I've seen in most anything these days.
And speaking of them, I actually think you actually introduced me to this before The Office. I think we actually watched them backwards, because Extras is one of the first British shows you got me to watch back when we first started dating.
Oh yeah.
And so this is Ricky Gervais, and I don't know the young lady's name, but they're extras, obviously, in movies, and so they start out just these little bit parts where they're standing in the background. They don't have speaking roles, and of course it progresses, and he gets lucky, and I won't spoil the whole thing, but it's funny because we've talked about this. There's kind of this storyline that plays out in a lot of these shows, where they start out with humble beginnings and they're trying to make it, and then somehow they manage to make it, and they become obnoxious pricks along the way, and then they end up crashing and burning, and they have to kind of humble themselves and try to make good with their friends, and find themselves again. And Extras is definitely probably the best example of that, where you're really rooting for him, and him and her were best friends, and then he just becomes as much as you want to like him watching the series as a fan, you're just like, he's being an ass, but it comes back around, and but it's a really funny show. And you want to talk about cameos?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, some of the biggest stars in Hollywood, made cameos, and in some surprising roles. That's really, to me, that's really what makes the show so fun, is some of the, they play themselves, but obviously a strange, exaggerated version, like the kid that played Harry Potter.
He's a chain-smoking sexaholic at a young age and chasing after older women. Yeah, I love that one. That's probably one of my favorite ones, is when they do that with Daniel Radcliffe. It's pretty good.
Right, and then you got Ben Stiller, appears in, like, I think the first episode.
Yeah,
and then of course, as you can see from this picture, we've got up here Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson, yeah.
The guy from
David Bowie
Star Trek, and David Bowie, and so I recommend it. It's on it's on Netflix right now, but it's going away March the 30th. So I'd recommend, if you have any interest in it, to go check it out as soon as possible. There's only a couple of seasons of it. You can get through it, pretty quick. I think we binged it, in a weekend or so the first time we watched it.
Yeah.
So check it out. I would venture to say it's probably going to turn back up on HBO Max once it finishes up on Netflix, but that's purely speculation.
I would think that's where it's going to go, but who knows? This BBC One's starting a streaming service, and the Toast of London is going to start back, but it's going to be called the Toast of LA or Toast of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I want to see that, but it's going to be on BBC One streaming service, so we may have to check that out when it comes on.
I may have to reach out to some of my disc trading friends or Google Drive trading friends from the old wrestling boards, and get that for us if need be. Yeah, that's true, because I think it will be good to see how Stephen Toast ends up in LA and in Hollywood, and how he fares on that scene versus the London scene. Oh yeah, you got a whole new batch of adventures because the trouble he could get into in London, just imagine with his pretentious ways in Hollywood. there's tons of great stories to be told there, I'm sure.
Oh yes. Well, and then the Life's Too Short. We actually watched it before you watched any of the stuff I've introduced you to recently too.
Oh yeah, we watched that a few years back, and then actually was just going to watch an episode or two last night, and ended up binge watching the whole series, because there's only 7 episodes?
8
episodes. But it follows Warwick Davis, who, if you don't know, played the Ewok in Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, and apparently he was in with the Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, wasn't it?
No, he was in Harry Potter.
Okay, I never watched that.
He was the troll in Troll with Jennifer Aniston starred in. He is.
Was he a leprechaun?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And what you see his face on the most is Willow with Val
Yeah.
Kilmer that came
Yeah.
out in the 80s.
And so this show was interesting because it's presented as a documentary that's kind of documenting. You take a guy who was a big star in the '80s, and by the 2000s, is struggling. The phone's not ringing, as he says throughout the show, and so it follows him trying to bother, for lack of a better word, Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant into working into some movies so he can make a comeback. He's going through a divorce. He's found out that he owes a ton of back taxes because his accountant, who's one of his best friends from childhood, is an idiot. And so it's presented as it's a documentary, but it's really a scripted show by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. But it's hilarious. He plays it so well, and they play on him being a dwarf and his everyday life of dealing with that. But you can tell he has a really great sense of humor about it. And a lot of the things that were joked about and said, this show, you could make this show now. And honestly, I don't know that it'll be allowed to stream for a lot longer if too many people discover it and hear some of the jokes and things that are said. But it's on HBO Max. I highly recommend it. It's a really funny show.
And then we come to Hello, Ladies.
So this is the first time you see Stephen Merchant as the star of the series, on his own. I'm not saying he's the only one in it, but usually he's alongside Ricky Gervais, or he's just kind of a side character. But this focuses on him, and it was a really funny show as well.
Yeah, I hated that HBO canceled this show because I really liked him. It's an Englishman in LA trying to find love. He's trying every way he can to get dates and a girlfriend, and it's funny. You feel bad for him because none of the women will really give him a chance. Because look at him. He looks like a nerd. And I'm sure in LA there's all kinds of these hot dudes that these gorgeous model-like women can find other than nerdy Stephen Merchant. So it's kind of like, okay, I get it, but it was a funny show. It only had the one season, but I would have liked to seen it go for a little longer.
Yeah, I think there was more stories to tell, and again, it kind of followed that same story arc of he starts out as the lovable loser, and then he starts to kind of have some luck with the ladies, and he starts kind of turning into an asshole, and, but that works because unfortunately in life that's how a lot of people's trajectory goes. They're a loser, and then they manage to pull something out, and then they become a jerk, and then they have to learn their lesson. But it's on HBO Max as well. And again, that's another one that I would recommend checking out if you're needing something to watch, because it is a funny show.
Oh yeah,
and Stephen Merchant's a funny guy.
He is. He's actually in just about every show that we named, and he always plays a character. Either you don't realize it's him, or it's he's like a side character. Like he was in Garth Marenghi's, he was a chef.
Yeah, he was a chef in the second episode, and he was only in it for a short time, but he was very funny. And then in extras, of course, he was Ricky Gervais's manager.
And he is hilarious as his manager.
Yeah, that's where you really start to see enough of him to really get a feel for his humor and see that he could carry a show on his own if given the opportunity, like he did in Hello, Ladies.
Exactly. Oh, let's see. Well, we went over everything we pretty much I've introduced you to as far as that goes. Now, what would you say out of all those? What would be a British saying that you did not know about until I showed you the newer British comedies that we've watched recently?
I guess the one that I'd never heard, throughout the years, anytime you dealt with British people, you always heard that term bloody hell, bloody this, bloody that. So it's very familiar with that, but I'd never heard the phrase ruddy. So I looked it up, and then it's kind of a synonym of bloody. It means, they use it in the same way, but Moss on IT Crowd uses it quite a bit. But I've picked it up. I heard it a couple of times last night when we watched Life's Too Short. So I guess it's a known British term, but I didn't notice it or really pick up on it until, it's a frequently used word from Moss on IT Crowd. So I'd say that's probably my favorite. What would be yours?
Well, I kind of knew about this term watching Wallace and Gromit. I'm a big fan of the claymation movies and series. I love Shaun the Sheep. Shaun the Sheep. Shaun the Sheep.
Yeah, people would probably find it hard to believe that you got me to sit and watch a number of episodes of Shaun the Sheep.
You did. You liked it.
I did.
I mean, I thought maybe you would sit over there and make this face every time the little theme song come on, but I'd look over and you were singing it with me. It was like, that's great. I love it. But growing up, I kind of got fond of some of the Wallace and Gromits, and Wallace always likes his cheese and crackers, and he'll say, "It's a cracking good time. It's cracking good."
Right.
The word "cracking" cracks me up when they say it. Like, it's a cracking good thing, like.
It stuck out to me the most in the one Darth Marenghi episode, the Scotch Mist, when the Scotsman, he's trying to end the feud with them, so to speak, and so he had said some pretty harsh things about Scotland, and so he mentioned that his aunt had been to Scotland and had a cracking good time. That's what it really stuck out to me.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But I know the one term that I never had heard this until I had watched Toast of London was taking a Johnny Walker.
No, not Johnny Walker. Jimmy Riddle.
Jimmy Riddle, yes, taking a Jimmy Riddle. I did not know that they refer to taking a piss as a Jimmy Riddle.
Yeah, they like to say "we" a lot. They say "we" and "we," but yeah. Apparently, taking a Jimmy Riddle is another slang term for taking a piss or urinating, if you will. Because another thing about British people, a term they use a lot is taking the piss out of people, which is, messing. If I don't know, if I'm messing with you or making fun of you or whatever, picking on you, for lack of a better word, they'll call that taking the piss out of somebody. So,
yeah, I've heard that before. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna take the piss out of it. Yeah. I've got that before. Okay, so out of all those, which one would you say is your favorite?
Of all those shows, my favorite is IT Crowd, just because it has the most seasons, and there's not an episode I don't like. It's not to say that any of the other shows have any episodes that I really just don't like, but I can go in there right now and literally turn on any episode, and even if I saw it yesterday, I'll still sit and watch it again. I'll still laugh my goofy head off, no matter how many times we watch it. It's Garth Marenghi is a close second, because it's so smart. It was written. And you can watch those episodes, and I haven't seen them all a lot of times, but every time I've watched an episode again, I've caught something I didn't catch the first time. It's very layered, and there's a lot of, like I say, nuanced things in there that you don't always catch the first time around, especially in the commentary side of things, where they're talking about it. It's just, but because there's only 6 episodes, and so you can only watch those 6, so often and so many times, I guess IT Crowd wins over due to that.
Yeah. Well, mine would be Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, and it's solely because of the wittiness. It's witty, sarcastic, the smugness of the characters. It's just over the top hilarious to me.
But you still like them. That's the weird thing. They're very smug and arrogant and self-important, but yet you still can't help but like them.
Exactly. Okay, so who would be your famous British actor at this point? After
favorite?
Yeah, favorite.
It would be Richard Iotti. Like I said, because I really like him as Dean Lerner in Garth Marenghi, and I love Moss on IT Crowd. But Matt Berry would be close second because he's so funny in so many things. You know, he's hilarious in Garth Marenghi. He's really funny on IT Crowd as well. And then Toast of London, he's great, and I also like him a lot, even though it's not a British comedy per se. But on that vampire show, What We Do in the Shadows, yeah, he's very funny on there as well. So he's a very close second.
Oh yeah, I love him as a vampire on What We Do in the Shadows. I'm excited to see that coming back.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna keep Hulu to watch that.
So who's your favorite?
I've always liked Ricky Gervais. You know, he's always been my favorite as far as British comics go. Now Matt Berry's close second. I think I like Matt Berry maybe a little more these days since I've rediscovered some of the shows, watching them with you. You know, and before it was really I had only seen like Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant and some of those, you know. So yeah, definitely. I guess Matt Berry would be overall these days.
To tack on to that, you know, for people who are fans of The American Office, Steve Carell is great in that show. I mean, he's hilarious. He's amazing. But if you've never watched The British Office, of all the characters Ricky Gervais has ever done, I love him in The Office. He's so good at that character.
Yeah.
And even better than Carell. And Carell's good. You know, and take nothing away from him. He's very funny, but he he plays that character so perfect. Anybody who's a fan of The American Office that haven't seen the British one, you really owe it to yourself to check that out. And it'll also help you appreciate how well they captured the feel of it in the American one as well.
Right. Yeah, because the characters he used in the British Office are essentially the same people in the American version. It's just they're a little more, I don't know, like the girl he used for Pam in the British Office. She's more what you would want Pam to be than what Pam is in the American version.
Right.
You know, to me anyway. I would have liked to have seen her play that, or somebody play that more like that girl in the American one. I like Pam in the US version. But having seen the British Office first, you know, I'm a pretty big fan of it more so than the regular Office. Don't get me wrong, I'm like you. I like The Office. Steve Carell's a hell of an actor, but it's Ricky Gervais for me.
Yeah. But I will say I kind of like Rainn Wilson better than the guy who played Gareth in the British one.
Yes.
To some degree, so. Yes,
I do like him better in that, but the guy that plays it in the British version is funny because he's so arrogant.
He is funny.
He's so arrogant, full of himself. It's humorous.
Yeah, you love to see him get messed with because he's just such a suck up and arrogant. You know, yeah, absolutely.
Well, all right. You got anything else you'd like to?
No, I think we covered it really well. Like I say, you know, initially when you said, "Hey, you know, check this out. It's a British comedy," I would always cringe, and even now, having liked a bunch of them, I still, you know, I'm always like, this could be iffy. But if you're someone who hasn't watched a lot of British comedies, I would highly recommend giving any of these ones we've mentioned today a chance. Especially right now, like, you know, while things are still like they are. I mean, I know things are opening up and they're lifting some of the restrictions, but, you know, and especially if, God forbid, you get in a situation where you have to quarantine. These are some great shows to pass the time, and they're very funny. Like I said, you can go on Netflix and see the IT Crowd. It's definitely worth checking out. And for another, you know, 3 weeks or so, you can still see extras on there. And then HBO Max has got a ton of great stuff that we'll eventually get around to talking to here on the podcast. So, real quick here at the end, I just want to address, you know, we're going to, moving forward, you know, it's called the Jackson Reaction Podcast. We're going to move more towards keeping it to reviews and opinions on TV shows, movies, music, um, retro games, current games, things like that. It'll be a less, you know, there'll still be times we'll tell stories about stuff and maybe give some opinions on different things, but we're mostly going to be giving our reviews on things. So if there's something, if there's a TV show or some music or a game or anything that you think we might like or might have a interesting opinion on, or something that you enjoy that maybe your friends aren't checking out and you kind of want to hear somebody else's take on it, you can shoot me an email, genejackson95@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to check it out. We might not be able to do it immediately, but we're usually pretty good at tracking things down. So if there's something you want to hear us do a podcast about, send it our way, and we'll do our best to check it out, and we'll get on here and talk about it. If you have any feedback for anything you've seen on here, if you'd like to share your opinion about some of the shows we talked about, you can come back even once this video is no longer live and put it in the comments here on Facebook or on YouTube, either one. And we'd like to hear your opinions of these things, right, Rosie?
That's right. That's right. I always love to check out any kind of new music. You know me. I love all up and coming, old, any kind of genre. I'm experimental. I try everything. So
that's right. She has the most diverse music taste of anyone I've ever known. Well, and of course, if sitting and watching a video is not your thing, and you rather have the audio version, we are still going to be putting up audio versions of every episode on our anchor.fm/Jackson Reaction Pod page. So I'll be sharing, once it's up, I'll share the links on my Facebook. I'm sure Rosie will share it on hers as well. So you'll have an option. You can watch the video one, or you can listen to the audio version.
Yeah, and maybe next time I'll feel a little bit better than death, and you'll actually get to see me instead of seeing my pretty picture.
Yeah. But, it beats nothing. But we're going to, I don't know that we're going to have a set day and time that we're going to put these out, but we plan on doing them, hopefully once a week. Maybe we not be able to do it every week. And then one week we may end up doing 2 or something. It just depends on how our schedules are going and how, how we're able to do it. But we wanted to do it more consistently than what we have been. We've got some ideas in mind for probably about the next 3 or 4 shows. So next weekend we're going to be traveling. So I don't know if we'll get one out or not, but maybe we will. We might get one out on Thursday night. But again, if you have any suggestions, any feedback at all, email me, genejackson95@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And Rosie, you got anything else before we wrap this one up?
I just want to ask you, are you having a laugh?
Are you having a laugh? That's from season 2 of Extras. So check that out if you want to know what that. We're not even going to explain it. You just have to go watch season 2 of Extras to know what that means. And if you're a wrestling fan, every Sunday night, me and Charles Anders have our Cheap Heat TV Live wrestling podcast that's right here on Facebook and here on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/cheapheattv. This Sunday night we'll be joined by Izzy Rotten and the Sellout Crew from EPW. And then this coming Tuesday night at 7 p.m., former WWE superstar James Ellsworth will be live with us. Should be a fun interview as we talk about the big Crossroads Clash coming up at the Crossroads Arena in Corinth, Mississippi next Saturday night, March the 13th. Tickets are still available. You're going to be able to see James Ellsworth. You're going to be able to see Impact wrestler Rhino, and former WWE superstar Gilbert is going to be there. So, plus you can meet myself, the real Rosie J, Rose Jackson herself, and Charles Anders. We're all going to be there doing a live bit of podcasting there from Crossroads Arena. So that should be fun.
Well, it's time to go have a spot of tea.
All right. Well, thank you all for viewing, listening, however you chose to take in this podcast. We appreciate it, and we'll see you for the next episode of the Jackson Reaction Podcast right here on Facebook and on YouTube.